Hello friends and welcome. My name is Heidi from Heidi Ensemble DIY, and this is my craft channel where I share all sorts of inspiration and fun things to try out in your own craft rooms. I'm so grateful that you stopped in today to visit with me, so thank you whether you are returning or new here to my channel. Now in today's episode we are going to be talking about 25 everyday farmhouse crafts using supplies from the Dollar Tree or thrifted. Alright, now let's get crafting. For this DIY, I was on Amazon and I found these beautiful farmhouse containers, and I want you to see that when you go to the Dollar Tree, they have lots of different glass options and jars that you can work with. Go ahead and pick whatever jar you want. This is one that I have on hand, and then I'm going to link these little knobs that I get from Amazon down below in my description box. Go ahead and take your drill and drill right into the center of your can lid or your jar lid. Take your time so that you don't, number one, hurt your table, and number two, hurt yourself. Go ahead and drill all the way through, and then I took outside my lid and spray painted it black. My jar, I spray painted it white, and then I added some washers onto that screw because it was a little too long. Added some hot glue up into the knob itself and tightened it. Now at this point we're going to go ahead and bring in that rustic farmhouse look. You can always skip this part if this rustic look is not for you, but I just think it looks so pretty, and we're going for that antique farmhouse look with this one. So go ahead and rough up your glass jar with some sandpaper. Go ahead and glue on your little garden tag that I get from the garden section at the Dollar Tree. I'm using some E6000 and hot glue so it really bonds on well to the jar. And then go ahead and dust off that brown paint and cinnamon once it's all nice and dry. Touch up any of that rust look if it's a little too much for you. I just come back in with some brown paint and pat right on top and rub it into that cinnamon, and it really gives it a realistic rust look. Then go ahead and put the lid on, and you've got yourself a rustic antique farmhouse jar. They have these beautiful canister jars, and I loved the size of this glass. Now we're going to put that lid to the side because we're not going to be using that on this project, but I love this glass jar because jars like this are super high-end at super expensive high-end home decor stores. So I'm going to show you how we're going to get that look without having to pay those ridiculous prices. This jar was $1.25. So go ahead and take your painter's tape. And you can see here that I've got probably about a third of the jar at the bottom that I'm going to be leaving exposed. But from the rest up, the other 2/3, I'm going to cover that up with some painter's tape, take it outside, spray paint it a beautiful crisp satin white. Once that is nice and dry and you took off the painter's tape, go ahead and pick whatever floral you want. I'm going to be using some of these Real Touch tulips because I just love these things. I'll link them down below, but I just get mine from Amazon. Go ahead and gather them together in a cluster. As I work with them, I like to kind of zigzag the stem a little bit. That makes them look more realistic and falling all over the place in that beautiful jar we just gave some life to. Then go ahead and tie on a beautiful bow. I'll link this ribbon down below. I love this ribbon too. This project's inspiration came from Home Depot, where I saw this really cute basket that was black and white stripe, and I knew that we could make it so much more affordable than what they were asking for the $40. So I picked up one of these floor mats or outdoor mats, rugs from the Dollar Tree, and then some rope. And I'm going to take a plate, and you can definitely make this bigger. You can see that you can use 2 mats to make an even bigger basket. I'm using a smaller one just to show you how to make it. So you're going to take a plate the size that you want, cut out a circle, and then put the plate to the side, and then you're going to decide how much you're going to need to be able to wrap around that circle base. Then you're going to go ahead and cut out with your scissors along that gridded line, and you're going to see that the mats from the Dollar Tree have these lines that are very easy to follow along. Cut out the length and the height that you would like, and then you're going to take your circle and you're going to glue it right onto that longer piece, and you're going to continue to add a nice amount of hot glue, making sure it's getting on both sides of the circle and casing it around that circle bottom. Now this part is so easy. It really just takes a little bit of time making sure that everything is drying. So be patient as you're holding it, making sure that everything is gluing properly so you don't have any weird bumps or any issues with it buckling on you later on down the road. The better you glue it, the better the basket will hold up. So here I am, I'm at the very end, and I'm just wrapping around that last little bit at the bottom, and you can see that I'm really holding things in place as I'm allowing it to dry. If you could hear the audio, you would hear me like blowing on it, trying to get it to dry quicker. So just make sure you take your time to allow it to really bond and dry well. Then up at the top, I went ahead and glued the sides together, and then I used some of these clamps from the Dollar Tree to be able to lock it into place and allow it to really dry nice and sturdy at the top. Now I decided to switch to a different rope because originally I thought, oh, it would be kind of cool to do brown, and then I really wanted to stick with that black and white look. So I pulled out some of my white nautical rope from the Dollar Tree. And the best part about this project is that the rope perfectly fits between the grooves on the mat. So I'm just allowing the rope to fall in between that divot down on the mat, and then you're going to see the black being perfectly spaced in between the white rope, so you can see the black and white stripe really well on this basket. Now you're going to just continue to go around and around, and on the back side you're going to have to bump up to the next layer. So on the back side of the mat, you're going to see that there's a little bit of a wave to get up to the next layer as you keep wrapping. On the very bottom, I went ahead and wrapped around to add some more sturdiness to the basket, and then I added on some handles, and I'm taking a couple of thin strips of the mat to conceal the seam of the inside of the handle to really clean up the look of it and to make it look more high-end. And I'm going to just use a lot of hot glue on that to really bind it in there so that the handles are strong. And then I'm going to use my little clamps again from the Dollar Tree and clamp it down into place to allow it to really have a chance to dry and be strong and sturdy. And I did that on both sides of the handles, and after you're all done, you can put whatever you want in this because it's actually waterproof on the inside with it being an outdoor mat. I personally think we saved so much money because instead of paying $40, I paid about $4 in my supplies. Another thing I love to do when I go to thrift stores is I love to look for different items that I can bring together as one. So this lantern, I'm going to take off all of this super busy stuff on top of it. Boy, was it ever glued on. I actually had to break the top a little bit to get that to come off because it was wired and super glued onto the top, well, probably hot glued, onto the top of this lantern. So I finally got it off. You could see that it was wired on there, and I needed that little nub part for the little handle to go into. And then I'm just going to take my Cricut scraper and I'm just going to scrape all that garbage off of there, glue the top part back on as well as the handle, getting that all back in place, and then I can finally take it outside to spray paint it. But before I do that, because I want to still see the pretty glass, I made sure that I came back in with my painter's tape. A quick tip that I like to do with painter's tape is that instead of struggling with trying to cut the most perfect piece ever, because that just takes way too long, I like to come in, layer on my tape, and then after I get everything all pushed into the grooves and the crevices that I can, I take my craft knife and then I just cut along and score that edge. That is going to save you so much time doing it that way versus trying to perfectly cut a piece of tape. It's like almost impossible. So this way, it makes you feel like you're not going to lose your mind when you're trying to preserve the glass, keep it clean, and keep it simple. That's my favorite way to do it. Keep it clean, keep it simple. So then I also am going to take this other piece. These are the two pieces I'm bringing together. This was a candle holder. It is so pretty when you bring these two together. Now you can see I took them both outside, spray painted them white with a flat white paint, and now I'm going to come in and do some farmhouse distressing because I love me some farmhouse. And I'm just going to go along the edges. Some areas where hands might be touching, and I'll go a little bit heavier in those spots. But in general, I don't like to go too rustic with my stuff. I still want to see the white coming through. So once I did the lantern, I'm coming through on that candle holder. And the crazy thing is the round circle on this candle holder is the perfect exact size needed for the bottom of this lantern. When I put these two together, I kind of squealed in the thrift store and someone looked at me. I get a little wild in the thrift stores. Maybe one of these days I will take you all with me on a thrift store hunt and we can do a video for that. Leave a comment down below or give this video a thumbs up and let me know if you would love to go for a thrift hunt with me in a video. But then I just basically took off the painter's tape, and anything that bled through, I'm going to use my scraper again and just come through and clean up that little bleed through, pop it on top so that I can turn it on and off when I want, and it's got a beautiful finished look that saved me tons of money. Altogether, this project cost me $3.50 to make. Can you believe that? These sell for so much at stores. We are going to be grabbing one of these little party cups. Take your Crop-A-Dile and punch 2 holes in it. This is such an easy craft to do, and it turns out so beautiful. Now you can see the Crop-A-Dile goes through it really easily without having any issues of it cracking all over the place. Go ahead and punch 2 holes on the opposite side. Take it outside, give it a little bit of paint if you want to keep that color. Now I'm showing you that if you want to do something else, you can Mod Podge whatever tissue paper or napkin or textbook on this, and then you can decorate them however you want, and you can make darling mini buckets with whatever you want inside of it for whatever season. This is such an adorable craft that can go all year long. I love using these little cups. Now you can see here for mine, I'm going to be Mod Podging on some of this text paper from a book that I picked up at the Dollar Tree. And now I'm going to just simply distress around the sides. Couldn't you imagine this with maybe some different tissue paper for the fall or for Halloween or even something for the summertime? And you can put all sorts of things inside this as a base of maybe a little tree or some pumpkins or some florals or a little nest, which is what we're going to be doing today. So I'm just adding a circle on the bottom so you don't see that cup on the outside unless you want to, like I said earlier, paint it and have that color. Now I'm going to take some wire, I'm going to loop it through those holes, and I'm going to simply just twist it into place. So now we have our darling mini bucket. Now, if you have gone to high-end decor stores, they have items like this, and I giggle every time because they sell items like this for like 15 to 20 bucks. Friends, we are doing this for just pennies. It is so affordable to make these yourself, and you can make tons of them because if you buy the pack of cups, they have like 10 cups, I think, maybe 8 cups inside of the pack. So you can make a whole bunch of these with different things. You could even like make these and put these on a Christmas tree. Like, how cute would that be for decor? So now I've just put inside some Spanish moss, and I'm coming in with some of these mini eggs from this Easter garland that I had on hand. And I'm going to just snip a little hole in the bottom of the eggs. That way so that it really bonds well in there. Then I'm going to sneak in those little tiny eggs. And I thought I would dress up the front just a little bit more to give it that vintage farmhouse flair. And I'm going to just glue on this little number 3 since there's 3 eggs inside of it. And on top of it I have 3 children. So I thought these are my 3 little baby eggs. And now I'm going to just take some black paint, do some distressing, and paint that number 3. And there you have it, a beautiful decor piece. Now we're going to be taking some of these clothespins that I found on Amazon. I'll link them down below. I love them because they have a vintage style to them. Some of these safety pins and a whole bunch of fabric. Growing up, we actually had a clothesline in my backyard and my mom used it to save on electricity. I have good memories with these clothespins, and I thought it would be so fun to turn them into a collected item that we can use for a decor piece that gives us that farmhouse French country charm. So go ahead and take some strips of fabric, all different fabrics, and then wrap them around onto the clothespins. Now, fabric shops back in the day would have things like this, so you can sample the fabrics and look at them, and that's what it reminds me of. So go ahead and just wrap a whole bunch of different fabrics, textiles, ribbons, lace, whatever you want to wrap on them. Add a little tiny dot of glue to lock them into place, and then we're going to come in with some safety pins and lock that into place with the safety pins. And really it's just to get that farmhouse look with the safety pins being on them. I'm going to add on some brown paint to give it a rusty old look. Now let's talk about this idea for a second, because you're thinking, Heidi, this isn't that inventive. But one of the reasons why I love the farmhouse look is the collections that people bring together. So whether it's a whole bunch of little clocks, a whole bunch of little watches, all clustered together inside of a cloche or a bowl, it gives you that farmhouse collection look. So doing this is so fun because when you put them together inside of a dough bowl, it's such a beautiful thing to put on a shelf in your home to decorate with. I hope you give this one a try. These tiles have been so popular from the Dollar Tree, and there's all kinds of projects out there, but I wanted to do something special with it today that I hope you'll give a try. Go ahead and cut off that outer flat rim. That's going to release the adhesive strip on the back side. We don't need that adhesive strip, so go ahead and cut all the way around the tile. Remove the adhesive strip, and then we're going to paint it 2 coats of white paint. I'm going to come in with my brush just real quick. Make sure you smooth out the paint around those bumpy edges. It'll take longer to dry if you don't. I'm going to use my heat gun in between those 2 sessions. I'm going to dry it, come back in with some more white paint, and then dry it once again. Once everything has been dried and it's nice and white, go ahead and take some brown and black paint combo, and we are going to dry brush across the surface. Now this is the part that's really popular, everybody's been doing, but we're going to turn it into something really special. Once you've got that texture nice and raised and it just has that farmhouse French country look, go ahead and take that tile, once it's dry, flip it over, and we're going to fold it into almost like an envelope. Fold down the sides, making sure they overlap a little bit. You're going to have to make sure you kind of push past that one line detail on the tile to get a nice fold. And then we're going to glue that into place because we are going to be making a darling pocket to put some florals or whatever you want to put inside of it, honestly, for your doorknobs, for a hook in your house. It's going to be so cute when we're done. Once you've got that glued into place, go ahead and cut it in half, or you could leave it long. You could use this in a kitchen and put all kinds of wooden spoons in it. Oh, that could be so cute too. I like to use some popsicle sticks at the bottom because this is going to help it lock into place since it's got all that texture and bumpy grooves in it. Go ahead and put 2 popsicle sticks on opposite sides of it once you get that hot glue in there. And then go ahead and use some clips, these crafting clips that I use here from the Dollar Tree, and then just clip right onto that wood popsicle stick. That's going to help it lock into place all that glue in between all those little crevices. Then go ahead and remove it. Punch 2 holes out. I'm using my Crop-A-Dile, and then I'm going to feed in some wire here, and I'm just going to simply twist, twist, twist until I get all the way around, coiled up the handle part of this wire. And then I'm going to come over onto the other side and do the same thing so we can create a nice hang-up wire on this darling, darling tile little hang-up basket. I think these are so cool because you can fill them with all kinds of stuff, especially if you keep them long and not cut it in half. Like I said, you can fill it with wooden spoons. You can fill it with so many fun things. And you can make it even bigger and thicker depending on how many tiles you want to glue together. It's all up to you, and the options are endless. Now we want to make sure the pocket stays open. So go ahead and put some paper towels, glue those down in there. And then I'm going to come in with some Spanish moss. I'm going to glue that in there, and then after I've got my Spanish moss all glued in, now you can decide what florals you want to use. For the spring and summertime, I just think it's so beautiful. These lavender, salvia, floral stems that you can get from the Dollar Tree. I'm going to glue a couple of those down in there with the 2 different tones of purple. And then to give it that farmhouse flair, I'm going to take one of these little wooden garden tags and I'm going to glue that right onto the front. This is such a beautiful way to get the look, and it's so cost friendly. I thought this domed bird cage was so beautiful, and I wanted to make my own version of it, and I found the perfect things from the Dollar Tree to be able to do that. We're going to take one of these mirror round frames from their home section. We need 3 of these smaller circles from these wooden bamboo circles, and then we need 8 dowel sticks from the crafting section. Go ahead and take your first circle, and we're going to measure it where it's a little bit off from being halfway in the middle to cut. And you're going to see here in just a second, one side is going to be a little bit shorter, and there's a reason for that. When I line up the top part of these together, you can see that it's shorter here. Why we needed to do that was so that one of them, the smaller one, is going to go inside our second ring. And then the other part, the longer one, is going to come over the top for the second part of the dome. And the reason why we need to do that is so that it makes it that full reach all the way over and around without it looking short on the sides. Now make sure you get everything in place before your hot glue starts to dry so that it's not crooked and it's where you want it to be. Now we're going to take those craft sticks. Be careful with this part because it's easy to burn your fingers if that dowel stick rolls in your fingers, but go ahead and glue 2 of them together, and then I'm going to just add some more glue in between that joint and go down it with some hot glue and a popsicle stick so that it's really stuck in place and nice and strong. Then go ahead and glue them on the inside of your dome that you created at the top, and you're going to now take a third one of those circles. And you can use embroidery hoops for this too, by the way. This totally works with the embroidery hoops as well if you can find the right size to fit in these frames. So you can see that I added a third one, and I glued those on to the dowel sticks with that circle. And I'm going to go ahead and remove the mirror off of the inside of that frame because we don't want that piece in there since we're going to just be simply using the frame and the back cardboard piece. Go ahead and glue that piece on there and then add on some more glue around the sides, and you can see that these smaller circles fit inside of the frame perfectly. It was like they were meant to be together. Go ahead and paint your dome whatever color you want. I'm going to go with black so we have that beautiful antique farmhouse look. Almost primitive farmhouse, which I just think that is such a beautiful look, especially around springtime going into summer. I love the black with the rust. So I added on some brown paint, some cinnamon. Once it was dried, I went ahead, dusted it off, and then I came back in with some black paint to touch up anywhere I felt like there was too much rust. I was so excited to find these wall organization pieces. They're $5 each in the Dollar Plus section at the Dollar Tree. We are going to take 4 of them, 2 with the cork board and 2 with the dryer erase board, and we're going to bring them together with some wood glue and some hot glue. These units are so expensive at different stores, and even if these come together for $20, you are still saving so much money because these are well overpriced $20, plus the excitement of being able to customize it how you would like. So once I've got 2 of them glued together for the top and the bottom, I'm now going to bring those together. I'm again using some wood glue and some hot glue to joint them so that it has a long-term hold with the wood glue and a short-term hold as that hot glue keeps it in place while the wood glue dries. We're going to go ahead and bring them all together, and then I don't trust it like this alone. I want to support the back side of it. So I'm going to take one of these yard painter sticks, and we're going to just simply use some more of that wood glue and hot glue combo, stick that onto the seam of the back, and this is going to really strengthen it at this point. Now again, wanting to make sure the other joints are locked in nice and strong, I'm also going to come in with some painter sticks that are shorter. I think these are about 13 inches, 14 inches, I can't remember. But I'm going to go ahead and take some of that and glue the same combo onto the other joints. Now you can see that I did break off some of it. I just snapped it right where the handle part is. It snapped pretty easy, and then I just glued it into place. Now again, wanting to make sure it's nice and strong, I'm just going to pop some of my staples in with my staple gun. And at this point, we have built the coolest wall organization piece, and we're going to use some twine. I cut 2 pieces the same length. I'm going to fold them in half so that we have a little spot to be able to hang this up on a screw or a hook on your wall. And then I'm going to just simply staple that onto the wood and then add some glue to help reinforce that twine so it doesn't have any issues coming off. When I saw this little farmhouse church, I was so giddy. I know I saw this at Hobby Lobby like a year ago, and they were selling this for close to 40 bucks. Even with the coupon, it still is not going to beat the price I spent on this, which was $3.50. So I definitely popped that into my shopping cart. And today we're going to start by just taking some painter's tape to preserve that rustic corrugated metal. It is going to shine when we paint this thing. I think the reason why it was probably donated was the green. It's a little bold of a color. If you're doing it for like Christmas, it's probably good, but if not, you'll see how I'm going to transform it in just a second. As I was putting the painter's tape on the awning over the front door of this little church, one of the staples came loose, so I just decided to pull the whole thing off. And then at that point, I took it outside, gave it a couple coats of spray paint, which was a flat white. And now I'm going to be dry brushing on a dark brown. You can see here that I'm really trying to get a lot of the paint off onto a paper towel, because the more the dry brush you have, the better it's going to have a nice aged look versus being too heavy with the paint. So now that I've got my paintbrush loaded, ready to go, I'm going to take off all of that painter's tape, and anywhere where you see the white bleed through on the corrugated metal, I'm going to come back in after I do all my dry brushing, and I'm going to touch up that paint. The other tip you can do, you can take a piece of sandpaper and sand off any of that excess paint. It'll come off really nicely, and then if you still want to touch it up with some brown paint, you can. So see, at this point, I'm already starting to come in, do some dry brushing on it, on the areas where hands would naturally touch, and then up underneath that corrugated metal where the white got, I went ahead and just touched that up to clean it all up. Friends, the white paint made this corrugated farmhouse rustic looking metal shine. It was so pretty. Once the white and the brown from the rooftop came together, I love it so much, and I bet you if it was white, the person probably would not have donated it. Now, at this point, I love using a staple gun. I think being a thrifter, you should always have a staple gun. It's amazing how many things you can bring home and fix by just using a staple gun. So I'm going to just staple back on that little awning above the little door of my church. And then to match the staples to the rustic look, I'm going to go ahead and just tap that with the brown paint to conceal those staples. At this point, friends, oh my word, this little church, it just makes my heart so happy. I think it's so cute. And can you believe it? It was at Hobby Lobby. I saw it there. It saved so much money. Anyway, I hope you'll give this one a try and look for these cute little churches or wooden farmhouse buildings at your thrift store. For this DIY, I'm going to be using this metal decor for candles. Now, I see these all the time at thrift stores, and I thought it would be so cool to give it a farmhouse makeover. First, I'm going to start by taking some painter's tape. I cut it down to a smaller strip versus it being a thicker one that I had on hand. And I'm going to be taping off some of the glass because I want some of it to be painted, and then I want the other part to be glass to show something that I'm going to be doing towards the end of this DIY. Once I had the parts all taped, I took it outside and spray painted the glass white, and then I painted the metal decor wall piece a really pretty tan taupey color. Then once I took off the painter's tape, I could see that there was a little bit of bleedage coming through, so I just took my sander and I just sanded off those pieces. It comes off nicely, and then I roughed up some of the paint on the metal decor. Now I'm taking a small piece of foam and I'm going to put that right down inside of these glass pieces. It's going to conceal the foam so you can't see it anymore, and it's going to look so cool because we are going to put some greenery in this and take it from looking too modern to more farmhouse. Now I'm going to use this long garland that I pick up from Hobby Lobby. I always just pick off what I need, and I'm going to be using these boxwood little sprigs, and then I'm going to just poke some holes inside of my foam that I put inside and I glued in place earlier, and then simply just put them all down in place. And once I've got all of my little cups filled up, I'm going to go back in with some of this moss, and this is the part where the glass is so that you can see the moss in there, and it just looks so pretty with the texture, and it looks so farmhouse. It's such a great transformation. I see these all the time at my thrift stores. Definitely pick one up and give it a try for sure. Then once you're all done, put them all back inside and finish all the other cups, and it's ready to be hung up in your home. For this DIY organization craft, we're going to be using 2 of these fall long signs, 4 of these smaller crates, and 2 of these smaller wooden trays, all from the Dollar Tree. And they do have these signs all year long in this shape, so just find one at whatever current holiday you're in and be able to pick up 2 of the same ones. You want to make sure the width is the same as the boxes. So now I'm going to come in with some of my E6000. I'm just putting globs all around the board, and then I'm going to come in with my hot glue, filling around the sides and a little bit in the middle, because we're going to be bringing these 2 boards together. We want to make sure the press particle board is on the outside that doesn't have any of that artwork stuck to it. We want to see that particle board. Then I'm going to clip on these clips so it makes it hold in place while it's drying. And now what I'm going to do, I'm going to come at the bottom of these particle boards, and I'm going to add in some wood glue and some hot glue so that I can glue on my tray. I'm going to make sure that it's flat and even with the board so that it will be able to stand up on its own. Then I'm going to come around on the back side and do the exact same thing. We're sandwiching these trays with the board in the middle. Once you've got those glued into place and they're nice and straight, go ahead and move up towards the top, and you're going to need to figure out your spacing that you want these crates to be. It just depends on how tall of items you want to be able to fit in them. I kind of just figured out where I liked it by eyeballing it, and now I'm going to use the same glue combo and start gluing on all of these crates. Once I've got all 4 of them glued on, I'm going to go ahead and move on to doing a kind of sloppy job. I'm using finger quotes right now, but I'm kind of doing like a rough job of the white paint. I'm going for a farmhouse look with this one, and I painted the particle board a solid white, but the crates I'm just roughly going over adding white paint because I wanted to have that distressed look. Then I'm coming in with some dark brown paint, and I'm just going to distress all around it. Now I happen to love these garden tags, and they come out around the springtime. Sometimes you can find them in the floral section throughout the year at the Dollar Tree, so just keep an eye out for these. I love these tags because they make your projects look so farmhouse, and I don't know, I just think that they look really cute on there. So I took 6 of them and I popped off the stakes, and then I glued them onto my 4 crates and my 2 trays to complete the look, and you can use them as labels with a chalk pen. My inspiration for this next look for less came from Antique Farmhouse. I loved these beautiful wall geometric art pieces, but I did not want to pay the price. So I found some of these mirrored frames at the Dollar Tree. I'm going to be actually only using 3 of them, but I'm showing that I was able to find 4. And you're going to go ahead and remove the packaging and then remove the screws from the back side. There are, I think, 8 screws on this, and I just used a little tiny eyeglass kit screw remover to be able to take all those screws out. Then I took it outside and I spray painted it white, and you can see that we're going to be using some of these jumbo tongue depressor sticks that I pick up from the Dollar Tree. I need 8 of them, as well as some shish kebab sticks. Now I'm going to be cutting them down to size because we want to make a little bit of a stronger base for our larger tongue depressor sticks to be able to bond to. So we're adding these shish kebab sticks in here to be able to really give a bigger base for our wood to go around it. You can see that I cut it down to size, and I'm gluing it to the part where the screws used to go into. Once those were all in place, I went ahead and cut off the rounded tips of the larger tongue depressor sticks, and now I'm just going to bring the corners together. I'm going to do 2 like that, and then I'm going to have 2 be a little bit longer because you want to be able to make sure that everything is nice and strong and secure, especially if you're going to be displaying it in your home. I really do try to find ways to make things look really high end without them looking like we made things from the Dollar Tree. Then you can see that I'm starting to put them on the corners, and with a lot of hot glue, I'm making sure that things are gluing really well. But before I glue this longer piece down where I hadn't cut down the sides, I wanted to make sure I got the sizing right. Now I'm going to add on all of the glue. I'm going to come into those corners and then onto those shish kebab sticks that we had earlier, and you can see here that it's really giving it a bigger surface to be able to bond to the frame. Then just make sure you push down really hard. Wipe off any of that extra glue that might be pushing out from it. And then once it's all dry, you're going to flip it over. And then I'm using brown paint, a little bit of black paint, and some water to create a stain. And I'm just going to go along the edge. And you could technically use painter sticks that are longer so you don't have all these seams. But I promise you, the finished look looks so farmhouse. So cute. It looks very rustic in my personal opinion. So I just went with these tongue depressor sticks because I knew I could get the look and look really beautiful at the same time. So I'm coming in with my faux stain, and I'm just going to go over all of those sticks, making sure I'm not getting any on the white frame itself. And then I'm also going to do the back side just so when people turn it over, it looks finished on the back side. I always like to make sure both sides look good. And then once that was all dry, I came back in with some white paint and dry brushed on some white paint. And this is the part where I said it's going to look so farmhouse that you won't even notice those sticks, and we're saving tons of money doing it this way. And now I'm going to come in with some brown, and I'm going to dry brush on the white spray paint. And can you believe it? Look at this savings. I ended up spending about $2 on each frame. I wouldn't even say that. I would say I probably spent about $1.25 on each frame. I have been eyeing these bird mirrors for the longest time at Antique Farmhouse, and I've just decided, you know what? They have these round frames at the Dollar Tree. We're going to make our own version of this. So go ahead and grab 2 of those mirror frames, and then 1 of these plant hangers. We're going to go ahead and take off the back so that we can get that out of the way. Take that plant hanger, open up the hook so we can get to those chains. We're going to need 2 of these chains for our 2 different mirrors because there are 3 strands on each one of those hooks, and we're going to need 4 of these bottom hooks that can go into the frame. So when you pick these up, make sure you get 2 of these packs of chains. Now at this point you can see that I've added on a second hook. So the one chain has 2 hooks at the bottom, and I'm going to go ahead and remove 4 of these chains and add back on that hook because we're going to use these 2 hooks on the end to be able to go into the frame. So you can see here that I'm just removing the 4 chains that we don't need because we don't want it to be too long. And then I'm just going to make sure the measurement's right. I'm going to take my Crop-A-Dile because it goes through hard plastic and metal. I love this tool. I'll link it down below, but this tool is like my all-time favorite in my craft room. It's actually a eyelet smasher, eyelet tool for scrapbooking. I love this tool so much. So go ahead and punch out 2 holes, and I'm going to show you how I go ahead and put that hook in. I open up the hook. I'm going to come in on the first hole punch closest to the middle of that frame. I'm going to bring it down in there, push it in a little bit. You need to open up that hook just a tiny bit to get it through the second hole, and then I'm going to pull it up, and at this point you can take that open hook and close it. I know that was kind of wordy, so hopefully that all made sense. But once you got those both sides on, put that to the side, and now we're going to make our little birds out of foil. I have fallen in love with foil, friends. I actually have some really cool DIYs coming here soon on my channel. So if you're a new subscriber, click the subscribe button so you don't miss these foil DIYs that are coming. Now I'm going to do this in real time. I'm not going to speed this up because I want you to see all the steps on how I made this little bird. My kids actually were all saying it looked more like a duck, but I like ducks too. So let's just call it a duck for now. So I went ahead and created the neck and the head, and then I'm now working on the body. You can see that the body is a little bit bigger, and I'm just going to keep curving around the bottom of the duck or bird, whichever we want to call it. And then I'm going to just bring down any of that extra, bringing it into the body, and whatever is too much extra bulk, I'm going to just cut that off. And then I'm going to keep pushing that down until I got it framed into the size of the body of our cute little duck slash bird. And now I'm going to use a hammer. This is going to help me compress it because at this point it's getting kind of harder to squeeze with your hand. And I'm going to just keep playing with it until I get the shape that I want. The hammer is really useful in this part so that you can be able to get it nice and compacted. And this is turning into a really cool cast iron type piece of DIY to work with. I think these are so cool, and you can make pretty much any shape you want. Now you can see I'm also using my pliers for those little tiny places that need to be squished a little bit more. And I'm also rocking and rolling across on my table. For the neck, I'm pushing it down a little bit so it doesn't look more like a goose. Just keep playing with it until you get it to the sizing. Now at the back of the tail, I'm going to use my pliers again. I'm going to squish into that area, pinching it so you've got more of that bottom feather pointed look at the end. And then I'm going to come in one more time with my hammer and just make sure everything is nice and tight and compacted. And once I've got it exactly the way I want it to look, we're now going to take some painter's tape, because you really can't paint foil and you really can't hot glue with foil. It's best to cover it with painter's tape. So do your very best to just wrap that painter's tape around the shape of your little duck or bird, and then go ahead and cut off anything that's extra. Keep pulling it tight so that you get that shape in there exactly the way you want it to. And then once everything is all nice and secure and you've got all of those little tiny pieces of foil that are showing, we don't want to see that, so that the paint looks really nice and finished when we get this all done. We're then going to take a shish kebab stick. I poked a hole in it first, and then I'm going to come in with some hot glue and glue that up in there. If you don't want to do these birds, go ahead and totally skip them. I really wanted the birds on my frames. So I'm going to go ahead and take some caulk, and I'm just going to smooth it out with some water. And once it was all dry, go ahead and paint it black. Now you have these cool cast iron looking birds, and we can punch a hole right in the top center of our mirror frame. And we're going to just take the shish kebab stick and put some hot glue on it and stick that right down into the hole. I feel like at this point, this is really starting to look like our inspiration, and we are saving tons of money. I love figuring out things like this for my home and just making it my own. So once that glue is in there, go ahead, pop that frame back in, and now I'm going to come in with some of that brown paint, some cinnamon. Once it's dry, go ahead and dust off all the excess, and then come back in with any black paint if you want to touch it up. And when you're all done, you have got yourself a beautiful knockoff Look for Less of those bird mirrors. We're going to start with this urn that I got for about $3.50. I could not believe when I saw this. I was so excited. I took it outside first and I spray painted it a gold that I had on hand. And I'm going to also now come in and layer and feather on this gold paint that I picked up from Walmart. So we're going to just very lightly add on a different layer of gold. This first gold that was a spray paint was more of a pewter gold, and I picked that up from Walmart as well. So I like to layer on my different layers of paint when it comes to this technique. It's gonna really give it that pewtered, aged look that we want. It's very trendy right now. I actually saw an urn that was just like this on Pottery Barn, and they were selling it for like $100. And I'm gonna do mine for $4. I mean, really, I bought it for $3.50. And then the cost of the paint, we'll just say like 50 cents. So you can see I came in with the spray paint first, then the brighter gold, and now I'm coming in with a dark brown, and I'm going in between all the crevices, patting it, wiping it, making sure it's getting down into those grooves, and then I'm coming back in again and feathering on that lighter gold. Doing all of this together is really going to age that pot and make it look like it's an antique heirloom. Now I'm going to take a piece of foam core, poke a whole bunch of holes in it, because the picture that I saw, the inspiration on Pottery Barn, they had a fern inside of this, and I thought it was beautiful. So we're going to use a whole bunch of these different fern pieces from the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to layer a whole bunch of different fern pieces because I feel like that makes it look more realistic versus just sticking with one plant. So I just have a collection of different fern plants. Once you stick that inside, it's ready to be displayed in your home. You saved so much money, and this looks so high-end and beautiful. When I think of French country, I always think of crate baskets, the kind that you would put apples in, the kind that you would use on a farm. I just love these kind of baskets. And today we're going to learn how to make one really easy, really affordable. We're going to take 2 of these hoop rings from the craft section at the Dollar Tree, and we are going to take some of these jumbo tongue depressor sticks that you can get from Walmart. Go ahead and figure out the length that you want the basket to be, how tall, and then go ahead and cut off all the sticks going all the way around the smallest ring. It'll look like a little sunburst, just like this. Then we're going to start taking each one of those sticks and we're going to start to glue them on. The heat from the hot glue is going to warm up the stick, which is going to allow you to be able to press it down and to curve it around that circle band. So just hold it into place until the hot glue dries off, and then once you've gone all the way around, you're going to notice there's going to be one spot on here that is just a little bit too big for the spot. If you come across that problem with your sticks that you have, it's not a big deal. Just go ahead and take that stick and cut it down from the width of the stick. So you can see here I'm just splintering right up it. It is going to want to crack a little bit, so just keep your pressure going in the same direction and move your scissors around until you've got that width that you want. Go ahead and glue that one into place, and now we're going to work on the top band. Now, because this is a basket, it's going to need that pressure to be distributed at the top. So we're going to glue on the first stick and then go to the opposite side and glue on that stick on the opposite side of the ring. Then we're going to go the other direction. So just think north, south, east, west. We're gluing them across from each other to distribute that pressure from the bands that are stretching out from those sticks. Keep repeating that, going opposite ways until you get all the way around the crate. Now, if you don't like that there is these openings from the crate, you could always come in with more sticks and fill that all in. But I love that charm of Farmhouse, which is what that looks like to me. So I'm going to go ahead and leave it as is. Add some reinforcement hot glue inside of that crate, and now we're going to take some paint and paint it whatever color we want. You could finish the bottom if you want to use this to actually hold objects in it. I would recommend using some foam core. Go ahead and take your basket, and you can decide at this point whatever stencil you would like to use on the front. I am going to be using this beautiful French type design where it's a bumblebee and a beautiful wreath of leaves. Go ahead and take your time just patting that paint in there, and once it's all done and dried, go ahead and lightly distress. You can see here I'm coming in with some brown paint. I'm rubbing it in with my hand and just keep moving along. In the end, you've got yourself this beautiful crate basket for your home. I found one of these plastic boxes with a lid, and I knew we could turn it into something super special very easily. So we are going to take the lid and we're going to take the big bite, and you can use a drill on this, but the big bite is so much easier to use if you have one on hand. Go ahead and punch a hole right where you saw that plastic circle in the middle. Now you're going to see that it does a great job at making a hole without cracking it too crazy. I love using the big bite for this exact purpose because it gives you that longer reach than what the Crop-A-Dile can do. Go ahead and take a darling little knob of whatever kind you want. I picked these knobs up from Amazon, and then I'm going to just add some washers to it, screw that on, and with a different color paint on it, you have the most beautiful, easy DIY box. For this project, we're going to be taking 3 of these crates and 4 of these tall glasses. Now, do you remember those tall candles? They have started selling the vases without the wax candles in them, which is so awesome. These are actually over in the floral section and over by the home stuff, like the home decor things. So it could also be by those candles that have the picture of the Savior on it. So go ahead and tape off your glass at halfway in the middle of it, And while those are outside drying, because I spray painted them white, we're going to go ahead and take these 3 boxes and we're going to glue them together. Once I've used some wood glue and some hot glue, because we want to make sure we're using that wood glue in there too for that long-term hold, I went ahead and took some dark brown paint and I'm going to just brush that all over my box. This is going to give such a beautiful farmhouse French country look to it. Once that is all dry, and as well as the glass jars, go ahead and take off that painter's tape, put in some foam. I glued everything down in there, even, yes, the glass jars, because I'm not going to really put real water in this. I'm just going to always put faux flowers, and I have cats in my house and I don't want them to knock these over. So I'm going to go ahead and just glue down in some boxwood and some Spanish moss. And then inside these glass jars, I can display some beautiful florals for whatever season and switch it out all year long. I love containers like this for parties, but I did not want to spend $33.99 for this. So I headed to the Dollar Tree. I picked up one of these meatloaf pans or bread pans, and I'm going to go ahead and also grab one of these 3D wreath garden forms, and I'm going to just get to the biggest circle where it has these metal sticks that are coming down. That's to bring it all together into one big piece, but we want to just be able to use the one biggest outer ring. Go ahead and cut right where that inner stick comes down, and we're going to go ahead and use our Crop-A-Dile, punch out 2 holes on our pan, and we are now going to take this piece of wire. I'm going to do the length of my pliers. You can see that I put that right in the middle of the pliers. And then I'm going to go right at the bend and then bend it again. So you've got this little arch in the wire. Then take that wire and you're going to take the end, put it into the hole that's closer to the inner part of the pan, push it down in there so you can pinch the wire's end up into the second outer hole, pull it up, wiggle it the best you need to be able to get it all the way out, and then you've now got yourself a darling handle. Now we want to make sure it doesn't just flop all over the place, because that's not going to be very useful. So we're now going to just take our pliers again, we're going to bend down and start coiling it around the handle piece. And I just like to just keep coiling as tight as I can and working with it until I get it all the way to the very end. You could stop once you go once around, but I like to try to get it as tight as I can. And even then, it's still going to be a little bit wiggly. So I have another trick that we're going to do in just a second. But you're going to see here that I'm just wrapping it as tightly as I can around until I get all the way to the end of that piece. Once I do, flip it over and add some hot glue onto the bottom. This is really going to lock it into place, but you're going to need to hold it for about a minute or two while that hot glue dries and locks it into place. Now we're going to move on to that brown paint and cinnamon. I just love how this looks, and I'm just going to continue that all the way around the pan in the spots that I want it to. Now you can see that against the black it's really standing out. I don't want it to look this rusty, so I'm just adding on a nice amount to start with. I'm going to dust off the excess, and then I'm going to come in with that black paint. And then I'm going to just tap all around it, really working that in and getting that look. When you add that black paint onto the cinnamon, it really gives it that bubbly, rusty look. Let's grab one of these bowl packs, this low dish from the garden section, but it's still that plasticky feel, just like the party section, and then some of these tumbling blocks. Now, I will say that I saw a video a while ago from Mother Time who came up with a similar idea to this, but we're going to make it our own. But I wanted to make sure I gave a shout out to Mother Time because I just adore her. I think she's so talented. So let's make sure we give her some love and attention too, right? Now, we're going to be taking, this is where mine's going to vary and be a little bit different. I'm going to be taking my stacking blocks and I'm going to do 2 by 4. So that means 2 wide and 4 long. So you're going to see here that I'm just using wood glue and hot glue. Now, it is so important to always get our adhesives right because if we don't, things just break. I would not use E6000 on wood just because it needs that wood locking component, because that is what binds them together. Yes, you could totally use E6000 if you wanted to, if that's what you have on hand, but the wood glue and the hot glue is going to be so much stronger. So you can see here that I'm just stacking up those 2 wide and 4 high. And then once I've got all of those locked and glued into place, I'm going to go ahead and take that, and now I'm going to add on, because we're going onto plastic, that E6000 and hot glue. So again, we're going to try to lock all of this together with the right adhesives, and the hot glue is going to help hold the wood down, and the E6000 is going to go in between those cracks that we added that wood glue to make everything lock in and stick to the plastic. Adhesive is so great, especially when you get the right adhesive for the right project. Now I took it outside and I spray painted it black, and I'm going to add on a little scale at the front of it, and I'm going to go ahead and link a printable down below if you want to get a hold of the scale, but I just basically just googled vintage scale faces and you can find any face that you would like to put on it. And I'm now going to take some of my brown paint and we're going to distress this to make this look a very vintage farmhouse. You can skip this part if the rust idea is not for you, but I love the charm that it gives it. So go ahead and take some cinnamon and just sprinkle that wherever you put some brown paint. Now, if it gets to the point where you feel like it's too heavy, too dark, too much rust, all you have to do is just let it dry, brush some of that off, and then you're going to come back in with a little bit of black paint, and you just simply dabble it on the spots where you want to add back in that black paint. I actually like the effect when you add black paint on top of the cinnamon. It really gives it even more of that rusted look. I think it looks so great. It's just, I don't know how I think, but you do whatever you want to do at this point for your scale, and you can paint it whatever color you'd like as well. So now I'm just simply tying a bow on it, and now you can put whatever you want inside of your scale tray. These wooden boxes have been so popular, and I know a lot of us still have them on hand. I know I personally do. So I'm going to take 6 of them, and then 2 of these trays, and I'm going to take 6 of these tumbling blocks. And all together, we're going to create a really easy to follow organization system for jewelry, for crafts, for game boards, whatever you have that you could use this for. It's a really easy project to put together. So you're going to see that I flipped around those boxes so that that pattern wood cutout is on the inside. I don't want to see that part. And now I'm going to just take some wood glue and some hot glue, and I'm going to pop that right at the top of that drawer that can come out. This is going to be the handle for it. Now I always like to clean up my glue. I don't like when things look sloppy and you can see glue going everywhere. So just use a popsicle stick for that to clean that up. And then I'm going to come underneath it to support that little handle. I'm doing a line of glue, and then I'm going to smooth it out so it has a nice clean finish. I would recommend, if you want to, you could always end up putting something on the inside of the box that will keep anything little from falling out through that wood cutout. It's just up to you what you want to put on the inside. Now we're going to take 3 of them using that same glue combo with the wood glue and the hot glue, and we are going to bring 3 boxes together to create a little tower. Once you've got your glue all on there, go ahead and line them up and figure out which side you want to be the flatter side. These are off by just a millimeter for most of the boxes, so make sure one side is nice and flat. Now what we're going to do, after building 2 of those towers where there's 3 of these crates together, we're going to take some glue, again, same combo, and then these trays, and you can see I'm only putting glue on half of the side of the tray, and that's because we're going to be angling the tray so that you can see what's inside of it and be able to reach in there really easy. Go ahead and angle it to the height that you would want, and you can see it right here that it's not flat to the floor or to the table. And then you're going to add some more glue. But friends, this is where I make the biggest mistake. Alert, alert. Don't glue on the second tower until you have glued on the second tray, and then glue on the second tower. You can see right here, instant regret when I glued on that second tower, because now I have to try to wedge in the second tray. I was wiggling around in there trying to get it to go in there. Glue was going all over the place and I had to pick it all off. It came off easily, which was good. Then I'm going to go ahead and reinforce the bottom of this by adding some glue, bringing in my popsicle stick to smooth it out, and you have got yourself the coolest, easiest organization tray unit. We are now going to take this little duck. I loved this little friend when I saw it on the shelf. I ended up getting it for $2.50. These are actually collectible items, and I know a lot of people are always looking for these because you can really transform them, or you can keep them as is. It depends on what your style of your home is. I took mine outside and I spray painted with a flat white spray paint. And now we're going to come in and we're simply going to just dry brush on a dark brown. That's it. We are going to give this little duck a whole new life. And if you love ducks like I do, or birds of any kind, I love bird decor in my home. If you do love it as much as I do, you're going to now start hunting down these ducks. So you can see that I light brushed over its back feathers, and then the chest had really fine scratching through the detailing of it. So I came on first with a heavier dark brown, wiped off the majority of that, and then I came back in and kept feathering it on very lightly until I got all of those grooves to show through. I did want to keep it a little bit darker right underneath the duck's neck because it added a lot of depth and texture to the duck. And then the bill of the duck, his beak, I also kept that looking a little bit darker as well. So just keep playing with it, feathering on your paint until you get it to that concrete, beautiful look that is very trendy in farmhouse right now. If you are enjoying this video, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up. It always helps me out here on my channel. I love doing these free craft classes. I hope you enjoy them too, and giving that thumbs up lets me know that you are. Honestly, this is my all-time favorite glass jar at the Dollar Tree. I love the copper lid, and I did something with these a while ago. We're going to do something different for this episode, for this video. I am taking these jars, I took them outside, I spray painted them the moss green from Rust-Oleum, and after they were dry, we're going to go ahead and sand it to bring out the texture of that glass. I love that grid crisscross pattern. It is so beautiful, especially with that green paint. Go ahead and just rough up that top surface, wipe it down with a wipey, and in the end you've got beautiful storage jars that have that high-end French country farmhouse look. I thought these were so beautiful from Antique Farmhouse, but again, the biggest one was $42. There's no way. I don't want to pay that price. So I found this beautiful candle stem, this metal round corrugated plate, and this mesh wire trash can or basket, whatever we want to call it. I think it's a basket. The bigger one at the Dollar Tree is the trash can for sure. Add on your E6000 and your hot glue, and here's just a tip. When you're doing these two glues together, try not to touch them because the hot glue will start to dry quickly once it touches that E6000. Find the center of that tray and put that on, and then once you've got it flipped over, add some nice goopy glops of that E6000 and then put on your mesh basket. Then while that E6000 is drying, I wanted to add on just a little bit more of this hot glue to help lock it in place so everything dries without moving or shifting. Now I'm going to come in with some brown paint and some cinnamon, and I'm going to work that all over my goblet meshed pedestal. And once I've got it all dry, I'm going to take my brush, dust off any of the excess, and come back in with some black paint to touch up where I don't want it to be so rusty. And at this point, you've got a beautiful container to display whatever you want in it. I was online the other day. I love the site Antique Farmhouse, and I came across this beautiful artwork, but I did not want to pay $58 for it. So I headed to the Dollar Tree and picked up some supplies. We're going to make it today for just $7. Now we're going to be using caulk that you can find in the home improvement section, 3 tubes of it, as well as one of these wood art canvases that are $3 in their Dollar Plus section. We're going to start by creating the vessel or the vase first. Now, if you don't feel comfortable freehanding this, you can always sketch it on with a pencil, and I'm going to show you how I do that with all the florals and the stems in just a second. But first, I want you to see that yes, we are going to be getting our hands messy with this one, but I promise you it's so therapeutic and so much fun. Oh my word, this project is so much fun if you love anything along the lines of painting and getting your hands dirty. So we're going to go ahead and take a pencil and sketch out a rough draft of what we want our florals to look like, which directions they're heading. Make sure to fill up the space of the art canvas, but don't forget to leave some open areas like our inspiration. It wasn't too heavy in every single spot, so we want to try to replicate that. Now you can see that the tips of these caulking tubes are different sizes. One is a little bit thinner and one is a little bit thicker. This is because we want to treat them almost like frosting tips when you're frosting a cake. It's going to give you the different shapes that you need, thicknesses, to be able to create those smaller areas versus thicker areas. Now you can see here I'm coming in with that thinner tip and I'm creating all of the branches, and I have a glass of water next to me. Caulk can be very sticky, and after a while your hands will be totally messy. So keep some water on you and some wipies, and then just keep playing with it. You can see I'm patting it down to make it look more branch-like. Now I'm going to move on to the florals. The florals are whatever pattern you want to do, and you can use any kind of tools on this that you have, some scrapers, maybe toothpicks, but generally I'm just going to use my hand, my fingers. So you can see that I'm coming in first with the initial shape, and then I'm going to scrape out anything from the middle that is too thick because we want to be able to see the texture of those petals. Then I'm going to come back in and pat down the different areas, dragging the caulk into the middle to create the outer rim thicker and the inner part of the flower thinner. Play around with it. This is so much fun creating these flowers. There are so many different flowers out there you can create with this project. And then for the buds, I'm just simply making dots and then coming back in and smoothing them as well with some water. Now I'm at the point where I'm going to make salvia or lavender, whichever one you want to call this. They kind of have the same shape. I'm going to just basically put a dot and drag, put a dot and drag. And as I'm dragging, I'm making it get smaller and smaller towards the very tip of it. And the drags also get longer, so you want to make sure you're stretching it out as you're coming up towards the tip of that flower. This makes the coolest texture, and all we're doing are making dots and dragging the caulk. Isn't this just so crazy? When you see the light hit it in different directions, it looks like real flowers. Now I'm moving on to the leaves. This is the third tube of caulk. I ended up cutting this one at an angle for the tip. This is going to allow me to be able to create more of that leaf pattern. But again, using the straight, smaller hole of the tip works as well. Now, whenever I had a spot that went out too far I didn't like, I'm just going to use the back of my nail and scratch along the board and mimic the caulk wherever I want it to go. That's going to allow you to be able to clean it up and make it still look nice and beautiful the way you want it to. Now you're going to notice that on my vase or vessel, whatever you want to call it, I did not end up putting a rim on the pot yet, and that's because I wanted to make sure I allowed a flower to be in front of it so that it had that layered look, and then I'm going to come in on the sides and create that rim. Now make sure you don't make everything too thick in here. I didn't want it to be standing up so high, so I'm taking out some that is too thick in certain areas. I want to get the shape and the thickness right, so just play with this part until you get it to the way you personally like it to look, and then don't be afraid to edit, meaning take away caulk if it's too much. Now we're going to go ahead and create the center of our flowers, which is a simple dot, and I'm going to just again come back in with my water, manipulate it so that it's looking the right shape, size, texture. And once it has dried, friends, this is the most important, crucial thing. Make sure it is completely dry, because you're going to come back in with a large paintbrush and you're going to paint the whole thing white. You could honestly paint it whatever color you want. You could do black too and come back in with a dry brushing white technique. Oh, that could be so beautiful too. So once it's all completely dry and you've gone over it with the white paint or whatever color you choose, go ahead and make sure you use a heat gun, keep it moving around, dry it the way you need it to so it's completely dry. And now we're going to come in with a dry brush technique. This part is so exciting because all of your work starts to rise and look just like our inspiration. I had a blast making this project. I have so many more things I'm going to be making on my channel using these techniques, but I hope you give this one a try. So this is what mine is looking like around this point. Now let's look at our inspiration. Again, remember this was $58 and we made ours for $7. I love creating a beautiful home out of budget-friendly items to work with, whether it's from the Dollar Tree or a thrifted item, or maybe even making over something you already had in your home and it just needed a facelift. I hope that these ideas today really inspire you to look around your space and craft with those type of items to do it on a budget and to create a beautiful home for you and your family. If you enjoyed this episode, please do consider clicking the subscribe button and join me here on Tuesdays and Fridays at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thanks so much for stopping by, and until the next episode, bye friends.